Searching Solitude here. Today I'm tying the extended body Mayfly. The extended body Mayfly is one of those beautiful adult patterns that you see sometimes in the fly bins, and I'm going to show you today how to make it yourself at home. We begin with materials. I'm going to be using tinted Mayfly tails. Let me bring you in a little closer here so you can see these packages. Tinted Mayfly tails, which effectively is basically the bristles of a paintbrush, I think. But they're synthetic, they don't take on water. The other thing we're going to be using is Swiss straw or raffia. This comes in a wound around a card, and you can kind of cut the piece loose. And then when you get it, you have to open it up, for this purposes anyway. Open it up. It makes good winging material, but today we're going to be using it for something completely different. And the process all begins with not a hook, but a pin. I've got a pin clamped into my vise, and I'll show you why here now first. We're going to tie the extended body onto this pin, not onto the hook. In fact, I'll show you the finished product. What we're going for with an extended body Mayfly is a body that extends beyond the hook. This allows us to use a smaller hook and be less intrusive with the fish we're fishing. So how do we create how do we create a body that is not attached to the hook shank itself? We have to create the body separately. So I've got the pin in the vise. I'm going to take a little bit of vegetable shortening, Crisco, right out of your cupboard. I need to grease the pin, grease the shank of this mandrel that I'm going to use, so that whatever I tie on it will slide off without creating huge incident. Next, I'm going to be taking some Swiss straw. Oh, also I'm going to be using A-dot Gudebroad thread. Frankly, I tie almost everything in A-dot anymore, and I'm using a color to more or less match the match the body I'm going to be tying on here. So I've got a piece of Swiss straw ready, and I'm going to just simply snip off a piece, and I'm going to bring it to my pin, and I'm going to wrap it around the pin. This is the tricky part. Wrap it around the pin and around that Crisco shortening, the same direction as I'm going to tie my thread. Now I'm going to start wrapping my thread. Alright, oh, careful not to go off the end of the pin. Okay. Next, I'm going to grab two, and only two, of those Mayfly tails I showed you. Measure them to length on the back of this body. It's a little tricky because you don't have the body tied yet, and you're measuring the tail length. I'm doing 3 light wraps, grabbing both tails together now. I didn't separate them yet. Pulling it back to the top of the shank. Great. Oop, slipped right off the end. That's what happens. So a couple wraps. Grab the tails, bring it back up to the top. Continue building my body using thread, working my thread back towards what will be to the back of the pin, what will ultimately be the thorax of the fly. So now I'm just going to build its body and create the taper I'm looking for, the carrot-shaped taper that all Mayfly adults have. Once I'm satisfied with that, I'll go ahead and whip finish right there on the pin. I have not snipped away the butt of the tails, nor have I snipped away the extra thread just yet. Okay, now I'll come back with a scissor, push against those tails, and eventually, if I do this right, they will separate. There we go. Perfect. Oh, had it. Yeah. Once you get them separate, you can just kind of push on the point of the pin. That gets a little bit of a bend in them. Now, it won't stay on its own like that, but next step will fix that. So now we've created the separation. I think you can see that a little bit. Created the separation in the tail. If I try to slide this off the pin now, the whole thing will unravel, because really all I've done is wrap thread around a tube. What I need to do is bring in my clear nail polish remover. A clear nail polish. Sally Hansen hard as nails, any of those will work fine. I want a very, very little bit that you can't use too little here. So I want to get almost everything off the brush I possibly can, and I'm just dabbing at the thread. And that's going to lock the thread fibers together, and it's also going to lock in the separation of my tails. That's it. So now that needs to dry for a moment, but through the magic of television, here is a finished one all dried off. Let me pull this wet one out of my vise and pop the finished one in so you can see what the finished product looks like. Now, removing this is simply, I'm using actually basically a hair packer, but frankly anything will work. You grab maybe even your fingernail, grabbing around the shank of the pin, holding it and popping it right off into my hand. Here now is the extended body that I can tie in the traditional fashion, tie it onto my hook shank. And I'll show another video here shortly to show you exactly how that works. We'll pull this pin out, and this is ultimately what we're going for. Alright, be sure to catch the second video to watch how we tie it.